This will be a video responding to the Azov, but before getting into it, I just want to say that I don't think people who aggressively advocate for state action are good people. I really don't. They're evil people and deserve the worst, and so I have no plans to be kind to them. I have no plans to stop being a dick, as some have said. They want to throw me in a cage and probably get raped if I don't go along with their plan, pay for the things that they want, and then they say that this brutality is social, when clearly it is the definition of antisocial. So no chivalry. These people want to enslave me because in their narcissism, they think that they can centrally plan better than the grand nexus of interactions of society. So let's just get into this video here.
All right, in arguing with libertarians and anarchist capitalists, I find one recurring theme: unfettered individualism. The notion that all restrictions on individual will and ego are a priori tyrannical and a conspiracy against the real people, that is, the rich, who make things work.
Well, clearly you don't understand what sense libertarians use the term individualism. Let's say an individual values his community. In that case, that individual will do whatever he needs to do to benefit whatever he considers to be his community. All right, that's individualism right there. It's also very clear that you have not read or listened to anything libertarians or people who call themselves, quote, market anarchists, close quote, say. Murray Rothbard and David Friedman, just to name two, talk about polycentric law and how law would come about in the absence of a state. Most libertarians in the U.S. hold to a minimalist interpretation of the Constitution, and even this interpretation of the Constitution says that the state can tax. Now, I don't hold to this interpretation of the Constitution. I think the Constitution gives the state virtually unlimited power through vagueness in the General Welfare Clause, but that's a moot point since I'm opposed to the Constitution. The point being, no libertarian of note claims that any restriction on will and ego is tyrannical a priori. Maybe some libertarian in a heated moment said something like that while talking about the state, but even people who completely oppose all state action aren't against rules or even duty to a community.
An increasing burden until, as Ayn Rand put it, Atlas gets tired and shrugs off this global burden. This is the philosophical basis of the supply side system.
Okay, you're really an idiot. Adam Smith, David Ricardo, and Karl Marx were all supply side economists in that they focused on the primacy of production and its means as opposed to the demand side economics or the idea that consumption drives production. Marxism, anarchism, the classicals and neoclassicals, and virtually all economic thought up to Keynes was supply side. Ayn Rand, as I'm sure you know, came a bit later.
Currently rules the global economy. And is taken to social, political, and economic extremes by libertarians.
I agree. Let's say Bob is for cutting off 5 fingers, Chris is for cutting off 1 finger, and Jill is for cutting off 0 fingers. Both Bob and Jill are the extremists here. Should we be more moderate and go with Chris's proposal for cutting off 1 finger? Calling libertarians extremists is just a lame appeal to the middle ground, and it doesn't advance truth.
Not only is this a rehashing of social Darwinism and survival of the fittest, of Thomas Hobbes' world of all against all, of the Roman proverb that man is a wolf to man, is patently false.
Okay, so you're more in line with Locke's view of man as being inherently social. The conclusion John Locke drew from this is that of a minimal state, that is, to ensure justice. And if this state oversteps the bounds required to ensure justice, then the population can legitimately rebel. Hobbes believed that the populace had no right to rebel. Now, Hobbes formulated his philosophy during the height of the English Civil War, and so I believe Hobbes may have had some PTSD which influenced his philosophy and caused him to have an unduly pessimistic view of man, whereas Locke lived in a more peaceful time later on.
It's bullshit, because a minute's glance at the real world shows this philosophy to be totally opposed to human nature and how human societies function, including the one these libertarians live in or would want to live in. For all of their fulmination that socialism and collectivism is contrary to the basis of human existence and human nature, they and their philosophies, I would say, are 10 times as phony. Because human nature demands security. Okay? For the individual and the families these individuals create, families that in turn compose the foundation of human society. John Donne's words that no man is an island is reinforced by the taken for granted fact that no one comes into this world by himself and cannot meet his own individual needs without cooperation from others.
Wrong, wrong, wrong. You are wrong, and you are a stupid old man who thinks he's smart because he is old. You are an old, lying, statist shit-eater, and the lie here is that you are speaking as if you understand the topic when you do not. That is a lie. Okay, back to Locke. You know about Hobbes' view of human nature as savage, right? That's why Hobbes thought you needed a Leviathan total state. Of course, Hobbes didn't really address the problem of the state being made of the same fallen man as everyone else, so how does this really get out of the human nature problem? But never mind that for now. Now, Locke, believing man to be more social by nature, advocated a more libertarian state. Right? Locke would be considered a radical libertarian by today's standards, which is to say, Locke's view of man as inherently social and cooperative led him to advocating less state power, not more. Locke is the libertarian, Hobbes is the statist. And this makes sense. Right? This is a sensible position to take when you think that man is inherently social. Hobbes' position is sensible if you think man is inherently a wolf. Even though Hobbes can't really explain how the king is any different from this. But anyway, what your argument amounts to is man is a social animal. Therefore, he must be forced by the state to be social. That's your argument. Okay? And it's retarded. Okay, Locke and Hobbes had the correct follow through of the idea that man is a social animal. Right? Hobbes would believe that if man was a social animal, you don't need a big state. Locke, believing man was a social animal, thought that you didn't need a big state. Okay, that's the correct reasoning. Your reasoning is man is a social animal, therefore he must be forced by the state to be social. It's retarded, and you're retarded. The anarchists support the abolition of the state, and they believe that in the absence of the state, because man is so social, that voluntary communism will win out. And I agree. The only difference between me and the anarchists is the matter of degree of this communism. I don't think it'll be as prevalent as they do. And they view the capitalist as passive dead weight, while I view the capitalist as the emergent planner of the structure of production, whose role has unfortunately been inflated as a result of state protection, and that in a total market you would have fewer and lower paid capitalists, but I digress here. Anyway, the rest of TheAzov's video builds off of this, and so it's not worth even addressing. TheAzov equates libertarianism with atomism, and this is coming from a guy who claims to know all of the plays in the libertarian book. And this is another thing. Libertarianism isn't even one thing, just like socialism isn't one thing. There are many libertarianisms, just as there are many socialisms. And there are even a few people who think man is so social that you don't need a state to have socialism. And these people call themselves anarchists or, wait for it, libertarian socialists. Now, there are people that I care about. Really, there are. I just don't care about you. I have a community. America is not my community. 300 million people are not a community. When you go to a football stadium, just a football stadium, which only has 100,000 people, do you feel warmth to them? Like you would give up a part of your income so that some random people in this crowd could live on their own without working? Now, unless you're a psychopath, no. Normal people don't feel this way. Each person can conceptualize roughly 150 to 250 people as actually being people. Anything other than that, and you're just this vague object, you don't even register as a human. Okay. Now this number 150 to 250, this is your Dunbar unit. Anything more than that is an abstract spook or a projection of your real, genuine community. Gee, these people don't like us and don't want to be in the same intimate social and economic bath as us. There must be something wrong with them. They must be against being social. And that's really what you're saying here. Now, that's why the emotions of secession and economic libertarianism are the same, because it's the same recognition of the same false community. When Finland fought a war against the Soviet Union, was Finland, the Soviet Union, which was trying to reclaim the old Russian territories, was Finland being antisocial in fighting this war by not wanting to be a part of the Soviet Union, which encompassed, the Kazakhstan lands and the Caucasus and the Ukraine, and they didn't want to be a part of that? Was Finland being antisocial by not wanting to be a part of this community? Now, even Finland is a huge inorganic state, but it's the same principle. TheAzov, you don't understand libertarianism. You don't even understand what economists and political philosophers say. Like, you don't understand what the basic positions are. I'm not talking about your critical thinking, which is also clearly shit, but you don't even know what the various ideologies and positions are. So before you even talk about like applying critical thinking with the foundation of knowledge that you have, you need to start by actually understanding what people are actually saying. Because right now, you have no clue. You have as much clue as the man on the moon.